A very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord and making headlines. The Thorne Commission answers more questions regarding its relevance. The 31st Intersessional CARICOM Conference gets underway in Barbados next week. We'll hear what are some of the burning issues. Calls for legislation to be passed allowing for organ harvesting. And in sports, the lower order saved some pride for Barbados against the Red Force at the Mecca.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
And in our top story, residents of St. Andrew now have a greater understanding about the proposed Thorne Commission, its structure, role and relevance. They got it last night from the latest in a series of town hall meetings at the Aline School. The commission, which is the brainchild of Prime Minister Mia Motley, is seen as a first step towards the establishment of community-based people participatory governance structures. Kishmar Sinjus tells us more.
Residents journeyed to the Aline School where they were updated on the proposed People's Assemblies from members of the Commission. They were told about their structure, roles and relevance. Ambassador to CARICOM David Comachon says the assemblies allow MPs to focus more on national policy.
We feel that our people are sufficiently talented, intelligent, educated and capable to be able to be engaged in taking more responsibility for the governance of their country. We can't behave in Barbados as if only 30 people who are members of Parliament are the only ones who have that capacity and power. So whilst we respect the 30 MPs, but member of Parliament, you are elected to be a member of a legislative body.
St. Andrew resident Heather Springer wants the Commission to ensure that the assemblies are free from interference from members of Parliament.
I believe that the MP for the constituency should be separate from this thing, because if we say we don't want any partisan politics, I'm not saying that he should not know what some of the things that are happening, but I think we should separate the member of Parliament from this altogether, because from the time, even like holding a meeting at a constituency office, it becomes political. I know what I'm saying because I had my share of it when I was a member of the St. Andrew Parish Independence Committee.
Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Dr. Ramel Springer, queried if one council would suffice for St. Andrew.
My question is, what was the thinking, what was the criteria for the numbers of assemblies for each particular parish?
Population density.
And geographical size never came into the question, because if you look at St. Andrew, for example, and even listening to the discussion here tonight, a lot of focus is on Belle Plaine, but then if you go up the hill, then there's Hillaby. There where I think people do not recognize how far-flung.
This is why we've come to ask you these questions.
The Commission falls under the purview of the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs. Kishmar Senjis, CBC News.
Well, the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre is currently being prepared to host the region's top political figures, as well as Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as the 31st Intersessional Conference of the Heads of Government of the Caribbean comes to Barbados next Tuesday and Wednesday. Prime Minister Trudeau will hold talks with Barbados Prime Minister Mia Motley and also engage in bilateral discussions with members of the cabinet. There will then be the informal summit of regional leaders that will be led off by remarks from CARICOM Secretary General Ambassador Erwin LaRocque and CARICOM Chair Prime Minister Motley. And joining us live now to give some understanding of the issues that will arise at the CARICOM Intersessional next week is a busy Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, David Comachon. Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, Lisa.
All right, let's start with this visit by Mr. Trudeau. This is his first visit as Prime Minister to Barbados. How significant is that for us?
Well, you know, Prime Minister Motley is the current chair of CARICOM, and the chair of every Heads of Government conference has the right to select a special guest. So Prime Minister Motley selected Prime Minister Trudeau as her special guest, and with the consent of the other prime ministers, he was invited as our special guest. And I suspect that Prime Minister Motley knows that Canada is our old friend, our old ally. Mr. Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, is a very good friend of Barbados, very good friend of former Prime Minister Errol Barrow. So I think it's about issues pertaining to trade. You know, Barbados will be hosting the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in October. We need allies in the developed world to help us to shape a constructive trade agenda. It's about climate change. We need allies in the developed world. We are on the front line of climate change. So it is those kinds of issues. Blacklisting. We continue to face blacklisting from developed countries. So I think it's all about refreshing and reinvigorating that relationship with Canada.
The regional response to the coronavirus outbreak, I'm sure that will feature prominently as well.
Yes, I have no doubt. Well, that is on the agenda, a regional response. This will be one of the issues that Caribbean people will be really looking out for. So far we have done quite well, but we'll be coming together to further take stock of the situation and make sure that we are dealing with this issue in a collective manner. So health will be very important on this agenda. In addition to the coronavirus, Barbados has put on the table the need for the Caribbean to develop a strategy for better dealing with heart attacks. Too many of our Caribbean citizens are dying unnecessarily from heart attacks because we don't respond quickly enough. So that is on the agenda for this conference as well.
You see CSME?
Well, the CSME, we always do an update, a stock taking of the CSME, so that will happen again. CSME and other important economic issues, we'll be looking at the CARICOM Development Fund. New funding for that fund and expanding it. We will also be engaging, the heads will be engaging with the Caribbean private sector. They have proposed a new CARICOM private sector organization which will be doing work on some developmental projects, particularly pertaining to food production. So they will be at the private sector will be at the conference as well. Labor should be there as well too, and they're going to have that engagement with the heads of government.
And speaking of projects, we were talking earlier about reaching out to Africa.
Yes. Now for me, this is going to be one of the highlights of this 31st intersessional, because we will be discussing the impending CARICOM African Union Heads of Government Summit. And to me, that's historic. The first time that the heads of state of the Caribbean and Africa sit down together. This summit is likely to be in June in Nairobi, Kenya. And we will also be discussing the establishment of the CARICOM diplomatic offices in Nairobi, Kenya. The Kenyan government has made office space available to CARICOM, free of course for the next 2 years, to establish diplomatic presence in Kenya, on the African continent. So I am very, very pleased with how this outreach to Africa is taking shape.
Well, lots of issues to unpack in 2 days. Thank you so much for joining us. You wanted to add
Well, I just wanted to say that another very important issue is going to be us coming to a collective position in relation to the election of the Secretary General of the Organization of American States. A very sensitive issue, and it's important that CARICOM not be divided on this issue, that we select one candidate and rally behind that one candidate.
Indeed. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Barbados Ambassador to CARICOM, David Comachong, speaking about next week's 31st Intersessional CARICOM meeting. There are calls for legislation to be passed permitting people to donate organs like kidneys after they have died. Transplant surgeon at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Dr. Margaret Oshia, says once this is done, fewer Barbadians could be utilizing dialysis treatment in the future. Now, at present, around 450 citizens currently receive treatment for kidney problems. According to Dr. Oshia, significant savings and other benefits could be derived from kidney transplants. She was speaking on the sidelines of the Rotary Club of Barbados Donor Awareness Campaign earlier today.
Yes, dialysis is expensive, at least $70,000 a year for hemodialysis, a little bit less for the peritoneal dialysis. So you can see there's cost savings to the hospital and the country for patients to be on transplant, because we estimate the cost drops a lot, because just during the transplanted post-op period you require medications to suppress the immune system so that your kidney is not rejected, but that cost is a lot less than dialysis. Plus the quality of life, you're going back to work, you don't need to be off work, you contribute back to the country, to your family, so you can see win-win in every situation.
And President of the Rotary Club of Barbados, Peter Williams, says the donor awareness campaign is in line with his club's quest to support local health initiatives.
At the moment, we only have transplants from living donors, and the government is working on legislation to allow persons to give, and in their wills, as it were, as they call it, a living will, I believe that you would be able, on your death, and obviously it has to be done within a very quick time, for the surgeons to then take your kidney and give it to someone who needs it. And in Barbados, we have so many people on dialysis who suffer from kidney failure, and so this is a life-saving and life-changing opportunity.
Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Cynthia Ford wants to see a resurgence of the community-based HIV education groups and the reintroduction of funding for similar programs. She made the appeal during her speech at the National Assistance Board seminar for men 50 and over and their sons.
We must get back into all of the governmental institutions and put in some element of funding to be able to continue with that sensitization that is critical. And for what we are seeing many of our young people in particular doing, you can tell that they're not doing protective things that are protective to be able to safeguard themselves and live healthy young lives or older lives. And so I know that most of the ministries had it taken out during the last administration, and now I am recommending that it happen. It may not happen in all of them during the program, but I know that the HIV/AIDS Commission has their budget and they're still working.
Ms. Ford also called on all men to become positive mentors for boys in their communities.
Who is going to mentor our boys when there's no father in the household? When sometimes the only male they see is one in the church, and now the women taking over there too. Deaconess this person and that, and there's nothing wrong with that, because the majority of the women in the church, the people in the church are women anyhow. And the work in the church is being done by women anyhow. And the majority of those attending PTA and managing the PTA are women. And when I see the cadets, the girls up front marching with the flags and whatever they're carrying, and 2 or 3 boys are smattering, when the cadets were always boys. So unless we arrest those challenges, we can't get the mentorships. We can't get our men standing up proud and strong and doing the things that boys do.
The Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute of Technology will be offering even more areas of study to prospective students from August this year. Principal Ian Drake says those programs, which range from hybrid electrics to 3D body scanning and 3D printing, are on the cards. He was speaking as 12 students received their IMI International Level 3 Award in Electric Hybrid Vehicle System Repair and Replacement.
This year we are rolling out the technologies, the hybrid electrics, drone technologies in automation, robotics, 3D printing, 3D body scanning, and we will continue with our CNC, which is the computer numeric machining as well. These technologies are going to be disruptive, positive disruption. SJPI will be rolling out the technologies, and we're working with our partners.
A significant number of people applying for government's trust loans to start a business have been university graduates. Word of this from the business development manager with the Barbados Trust Fund Limited, Kirk Doughton.
We have a high number of graduates from university wanting to open businesses, not in their traditional field of study, but we have lawyers, engineers going into agriculture, and they're using that particular expertise and the training to enhance the particular venture that they're going into.
Mr. Doughton was a panelist during a Straight Talk business session at the Alexandra School. He confirms that interest in the trust fund, which was established in November 2018, continues to be high.
To date, we would have approved 2,800 loans to the tune of $13,300,000, and the applicants, we would have actually processed 3,500 loans to date also, but out of those we would have dispersed 2,800. So we still have a high number pending in terms to be dispersed, and that says a lot in terms of the business or person's interest in starting businesses.
Award-winning Christian rock and worship group Hillsong London will headline the second edition of the Just Worship Gospel Mega Show in an historic performance at the Garfield Sobers Sports Complex this April. The internationally acclaimed group will be joined by local gospel talents John Yard, Russell Blackman, and Israel J. Allen. The concert will be preluded by a free interactive workshop which will be held at the Hilton Resort on April 2nd. Mr. Yard says the workshop presents an opportunity for Barbadian musicians to learn from the renowned musicians.
What I'm most excited about, and I really applaud Higher Entertainment for, is the initiative of the workshop, where an investment is being made back into the local community from these persons who have reached the height of success. Hillsong is a huge brand, and Hillsong London is but one of the installments, and I'm so excited that the opportunity is being made for us locals to learn from them. I'm also very excited that a local is sitting on that panel, really just giving credit to the value that is right here in Barbados.
While highlighting Barbadians' overwhelming response to the event, Just Worship host Daniel Norris says the concert aims to bring persons from all walks of life together.
Their music continues to expand their global reach, and their songs have become a cherished part of the Sunday song service in many churches across Barbados. Thus far, we are pleased to say that the response from Barbadians has been overwhelming, and we project that this event is well on its way to becoming a success.
Still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across our region. Then a bit later in sports, cricket action, the Pride versus the Red Force. But of course, before we get there, here is that tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
A breathalyzer is a device that is used to estimate a person's blood alcohol concentration by using a sample of their breath. This tip is brought to you compliments Cooperators General Insurance, who fully supports the introduction of breathalyzer testing.
Barbadian soca artist Lead Pipe will be the first to take to the stage for the finals of the Groovy category of the International Soca Monarch in Trinidad and Tobago on February 21st. Lead Pipe and 10 other artists will come up against the reigning Groovy King Swappy. Now, there are 11 finalists in the power category, and we hear more in this TTT report.
The final performer in the Groovy category, he took position number 12. The reigning monarch took the last position in the Groovy.
The reigning Groovy monarch, Marvin Swampy Davis, pulling for number 12, closing off the Groovy category in the ISM Finals 2020. Creative Director of ISM, Simon Batiste, speaking at the draw of appearances, called on artists to show greater respect to the competition and the title.
For us, when we win this competition, we take it as our birthright and don't embrace it with national pride as we should. But when another island takes the crown, it becomes a heralded event filled with pomp, pride, and ceremony, where people flood the streets to celebrate with a glowing sense of accomplishment. Does it bother me that we practice an open-door policy? Not at all. All 26 Caribbean countries and anyone from around the globe can enter to compete for this prestigious title.
And the creative director cautioned artists that the winner will be chosen for lyrics and composition and not popularity.
And for those of you who think a big song and your name will automatically gain you first place, that's not how this competition will be run. It will be fairly adjudicated, and audited by one of the most prestigious auditing firms in the world. So please bear this in mind.
In the groovy category, Lead Pipe will start the show off, while Aston Isaac will follow in second, Rome in third, Razor in fourth, and Kerry John in fifth position. While in the power category, Renzo will kickstart the category with Rome in second position, Mikael Teja in third, Prady in fourth, and the Grenadians Lunispark and Electrify in fifth.
Guyana's Civil Defense Commission has put the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan into operation. A simulation exercise was staged to test Guyana's response capability, DPI reports.
Director General Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig explained that the oil spill tabletop exercise is part of the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan.
Today's exercise is really one of the next step in the operationalization of our National Contingency Plan. Coming out of the exercise, we will be making further adjustments to the plan because you don't really understand some of the challenges, some of the roles of responsibility properly until you actually test it.
He told participants that the development of the National Oil Spill Contingency capabilities will be an ongoing process.
The way this exercise will be done is there will be several injects via emails, maybe via text messages, WhatsApp, and maybe a runner just come in and give you a message. And you will be broken up into different groups. And these groups are actually outlined in the National Oil Spill Contingency Plan.
The CDC head encouraged participants to be attentive and actively engage in the activities.
And sporting action is just ahead.